This morning, the word orphan, it hit me hard this week. It brought up a powerful picture in my mind. It's interesting, as I was studying for this, there were things happening in my personal life that kind of worked in conjunction with this. This week, I was registering my little Cruz for kindergarten. They needed his birth certificate, so I pulled it out. And every time I see his birth certificate, I remember his story, which when I remember his story, it's hard for me to believe. I forget what that little guy has been through because he's been so integrated into our family. I forget that how he came to us. I've never told you, my church family, I've never told you his story. I guess I was waiting for the right time, and I think today's the right time. It's been 5 years he's been a part of our family. But this week I looked at his birth certificate. I was looking over it, and I brought it into Pastor Joe's office, and I said, look right there, his place of birth. And with anger in his eyes, Pastor Joe, he's like, man, can you change it? I said, you can't change a person's place of birth. It is what it is. No matter how terrible it is, that's his place of birth. And it says in big block letters on his birth certificate in front of the address. And the address is 2 cross streets in San Bernardino. Our little boy, he was left for dead on the sidewalk when he was born in San Bernardino. He was orphaned. He was abandoned. And I read through his hospital report from when they found him this week, and he had hypothermia when they found him, respiratory failure. They gave him life-saving measures. They brought him back. They revived him, and they gave him the name Baby Boy, which is no name at all. And that would be his legal name for the first year of his life. Baby Boy, a nameless baby that they found on the sidewalk. And that was his entrance into this world. Painful, cruel. And the list of drugs in his system, they were long. He had uppers, he had downers, he had alcohol. He would have to experience the pain of withdrawing from all of them. He spent the first 12 days of his life in a hospital, and that's when they decided to call us, Jess and me, and our side of the story. We had waited a long time for this phone call. My wife, even before we were Christians, she had dreamed of adopting a child. The Lord had planted that dream in her heart deep, and now that dream was coming true. We finally got the phone call. We have a baby for you. He's down in Loma Linda. They didn't tell us anything about him. We just knew that it was a baby boy. They didn't tell us his race, his ancestry. They didn't tell us if he was going to be handicapped. They didn't tell us anything. The drive down was filled with a mix of emotion, excitement, worry, fear, all the unknown. Jess had an outfit picked out for him. She held that down. We prayed the whole way down. I'm Irish, so we picked out an Irish name. We didn't know that he was going to be Mexican, so we had to change it when we seen him. We just knew he was a baby boy. And I'll tell you, on the way down, I'll be honest with you, I was praying, Lord, no matter what he looks like, no matter the circumstances, help me to love him. Help me not to be shocked or appalled, because I knew no matter what, Jessica was going to take that baby into her arms and we were bringing him home. She was going to be his mom. And so we walked into the room, and there he was, little Cruzy. And they immediately put him into our arms. And it was strange. It was so surreal, because immediately the hospital workers started talking to us like we were his parents. We were his mom and dad from the moment we walked into that room. We were complete strangers to this child, and now we were his mom and dad. And that parental instinct, it kicks in immediately. From that moment, that little Hispanic baby, that was my son. He was not baby boy, he was a Malkus. And we fed him there in the hospital, and I began to sign the discharge papers, and They told us about the challenging days ahead, the withdrawal that he would be going through. And little Cruz, he was also sick. He had a terrible infection. And they told us that we would have to return to the hospital in the days ahead, that he needed to stay in the hospital for 10 days for an antibiotic treatment. And he would have to stay there for 10 days for that treatment. But they sent us home that night, and we were on our way. You can go to the next picture. Happy moment. We got home and our hearts had unlocked a new level of love. You know, you get married and you find out that the world isn't revolved around you. You know, you unlock a level of love. And then you have your kids and another level of love is unlocked. But I'm telling you, adoption is a whole nother level. And there's another level of love that you can unlock when you adopt a child. And Jess and I, we were amazed, you know, that Jesus had transformed our lives so much that society was even entrusting us with this task of taking on another soul like this. And little Cruz was home with us, and we just loved him. There was one person in our church, when he found out that we were adopting a little Mexican boy, he came busting through the door the first day. He wanted to hold him right away. Cruz, he had a long road ahead of him. The withdrawals, they were painful, and there are a few things more torturous in this life than watching a little innocent baby suffer from the stupidity of someone who could have done better. And after Cruz came into our home, all the COVID drama began to happen in our country, and we could not schedule him for the treatments that he needed in the hospital. The hospital stopped doing all those procedures. And we worried that if we didn't get these treatments, that he was going to have ramifications for the rest of his life. They were telling us that he could have brain damage for the rest of his life. Our missionary friend from Africa, many of you know him, Rob Douglas, he was in town and he was in our home and he was holding little Cruz as he was having tremors from the withdrawals. And we were telling him about the treatments that we couldn't get. And Rob says, listen, in Africa, they find babies abandoned in the bush. And he says they purposely place these babies that are abandoned with HIV, and they find Christian families and place them with them because within months, these babies are healthy. They can barely detect the HIV within just a few months. And he says, we're going to pray to Jesus that he does for your baby what these doctors can't do. And the summer finally came around. We prayed, and the hospitals opened up, and we were able to get Cruz in, and they did a spinal tap to see the progression of the infection on him. And would you know it, without any treatment, Jesus healed him completely. There wasn't one trace of infection in his little body. And here we are, we're 5 years later. He's going into kindergarten next year. You all see him running around here like a maniac. We call him Mouth in our house because he never stops talking. But when you hear Jesus say, I will not leave you as orphans, I immediately think of that little guy on the sidewalk in San Bernardino who Jesus saw. He knew just the people, he knew just the church to have him grow up in. You know, orphan is such a strong word. I will not leave you orphans. He will come to us, and Jesus says he'll give us his spirit. And maybe this morning, I don't know your situation, but maybe the world has left you feeling abandoned. Maybe you feel alone. Maybe you feel messed up this morning. This world is cruel. Maybe things have been unfair for you. You've suffered at the hands of others in this world. I don't know what has happened to you in your life, but I do know my Jesus. And I know that he sees you. And if you will be his this morning, there's an enormous promise for you today in his word. He will not leave you alone. He will not leave you an orphan. He will come to you. You have a family. You might ask, well, where? Who's my family? Well, look around. This place, these people, you belong here. We were all lost once, and we have been found. Together, Jesus promised that we would have the helper, the comforter, the counselor. Some translations call him another friend. My little Cruz's life is a neat illustration for me when I see him with these words of Christ. He will not leave you an orphan. And when you see Cruz running around the church as we watch him grow up, let his life preach a sermon to you that Jesus sees you. He will not leave you an orphan. He will not leave you in the state that you're in. He will come to you. He will heal your life. He will give you his peace. Your life can be filled with hope. You have a helper in this harsh and cruel world. And not only that, you have an expectation that is out of this world. This world is not our final destination. You have a home that is waiting for you, a mansion, Jesus says. A home far away from this cursed world. I hope you share in that expectation this morning. And if you don't, I pray that you come to Jesus this morning so you can have that hope.